Hey folks, this is your Game Master Dan with Gamer's Ledge. Getting ready and hyped to make characters for CyberPunk Red. I'm here today with Anthony.
How's it going?
Hey! Cyberpunk Red is a tabletop role-playing game that just came out. Well, the core book just came out a couple months ago, towards the end of summer for 2020, and we've been pretty stoked about it. Coming up to it, it had the jump start came out 2019, and we thought they were going to push the core book for a while, but they luckily brought it out just in time for Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk Red, the time frame for it is about 2045, so about 30 years before the video game. We're going to be making characters, and yeah, we'll see what's up. So we're starting off with Anthony, who is making his concept. I'll let him talk to you about his concept.
So the character that I have in mind is I chose a role of a medtech. So this will be someone who's responsible for on the fly repairing either the organics or the cybernetics of our people on the fly. So as we get injured, when we get injured, when people start dying off, I'm hoping to be the one that's able to apply some paramedic skills, some stims, and adrenals, and get everybody up and fighting again.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of really interested to see how this breaks down. The Jumpstart did not have some of the different classes and stuff, so it'll be interesting seeing how this one plays out. I'm excited.
I am too.
Okay, so we're going to be starting out in the core rulebook so they've got a couple different ways to make characters, depending on the types of levels and whatnot that you want to make. When you look at, oh, don't do this to me. Come on, computer. When you look at what character types you want to make, you have Street Rat, Edge Runner, or the complete package. And being that Anthony is as smart and takes in all of these role playing games like nothing, we're going to be starting with the complete package, which the book calls a little bit more complicated, but far more rewarding to build your character with. So we're going to be starting with the complete package. The core book actually has a really neat set of tables and a flow diagram to kind of walk you through the process of making a character. So why don't we go ahead and start with that?
Okay, so I am on page 41 in the rulebook. The nice thing about this PDF is there's a lot of internal document links. So page 41 has kind of become the center page of the book. From that page, you can link to any of the other portions of the character build process that you want to go to. So that's where I will start. It's like a full checklist to go through, 8 steps. So we'll just start at step 1, which is pick a role.
So are you on the complete package or Street Rat Edge Runner?
So I actually never realized those were 2 separate pages because they basically link to the same pages. So
they look almost identical too. So that's not it's
they link
I,
to, like, I think there's one page that's different between them.
so well, the biggest thing that got me was the 8 steps in Edge Runner versus 6 steps in Complete
Complete.
Package. Yep.
So to kind of give a little bit more on the difference between those 3. So Street Rat is the quick and dirty method to build a character. Everything's basically pre-done for you. You just look at a table, roll for which table entry that you get, or it's predefined, and you just record the data. Very quick way to make a character. Edge Runner is the next higher up in customization, where you still have tables, but you can more or less pick the table entry that you want to utilize, or do some slight modifications to that table entry. Complete Package is full customization. So you get it's all more points by. So you have a very basic starting amount of points, and you have a number of different ways you can spend those starting points to build your character completely customized the way you want. So all three of them are viable. It's just a matter of how much time and effort you want to put into making your character.
True that. True that. So with the different roles, they've got several that kind of fill out the this universe, and a lot of these classes roles have been the same for years and years through the cyberpunk tabletop RPG series, and they're also things you're going to see a lot of in the video game coming out. But for Anthony specific, for Medtech, were you saying you wanted to start off with the role page?
So I'll be on. So starting at page 42, not 41. Now that I realize there's a difference, the whole next page. I think they just added that in the newest errata document. Sorry, that wasn't there yesterday. So page 42 for the complete package character, because I've had the time to actually go through and look at all of this stuff. I'm putting the time and the energy. I'm going to go ahead and do the complete package because I have that capability. So from page 42, I'll need to pick a role. So I'll click the link to go to the different roles, and I'll see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different possible roles, and I'm picking the role of the Medtech, which is defined as the unsanctioned street doctors and cyberware medics patching up meat and metal alike. So I've picked my role. So on my character sheet, I'll go ahead and just add that in. On the left-hand side, just underneath the character portrait.
Right. So your role ability.
Okay. So once I finished that page, I'll go back to the core page 42. I'll see the role ability. So each of the different roles has a special defining ability that kind of emphasizes who they are and what they do. A rocker boy is able to use his charisma and his fans to convince his fans to do tasks for him. A lawman has the ability to call for backup. A corp character has the ability to gain benefits and favors from the corp that they work for, as well as followers and henchmen.
Kind of like staff. Right?
Yeah, they get staff. They get bodyguards and drivers. The Medtech, what he gets is a role ability called. Let me switch to that page. Medicine, original, and for each of the for a starting character, we all start at role ability rank 4. This means that we are a little bit experienced. We kind of know the ropes. So we are familiar with our role and how it works. So starting at rank 4.
So the way part of why I like them starting you at rank 4 is it gives you the ability to build this character as who they are. So a lot of character creation in other role-playing systems, you're building a character for who you want to be, right? You're building a character for, I'm a level 1 fighter that has these idiosyncrasies and low-level abilities because I'm level 1. That's who I start out as, and then as I level up, I become who I am, and I'm looking forward, right? Well, one of the things I like about systems that start you a little bit more advanced is that you can say with your character build now, you can talk about who you were, who you are, and who you're going to be. And so they really start you off with an option to say who you were in the past, where you picked up these skills. If you were a level 1 fighter, for example, you're just starting off. You can't really make a character who has been a fighter for a while and he's been doing this for 15 years. Well, if he'd been doing that for 15 years, he'd be a little bit higher level. Otherwise, he hasn't learned anything. So they're really giving you the option to build into your background by starting you off at role ability 4. It also leaves it open if we wanted to have a game where you guys are brand spanking new, we could go roll ability 1, but it's going to be like brand spanking new characters, and so I kind of like that.
Yeah, so it basically gives the equivalent in other systems where we're starting at effectively a level 3 character. So we have a little bit of experience under our belts. We kind of know the role that we're supposed to be playing, and we can kind of move directly into that role. What it also opens up for is as we gain experience and we gain the ability to multi-class, we do have the ability to purchase other classes' role abilities, but those will start at rank 1 as we learn what those roles are. So for the Medtech's medicine role ability, it's split into 3 basic trees. So the first tree is the surgery tree. The second tree is Medtech or pharmaceuticals. And the last tree is Medtech, or is cryosystems. For the Medtech specific, every time that I gain a rank in my role ability, I get to choose to allocate 1 point to each of those trees. The surgery tree makes me better at performing surgery, being a more surgical style doctor, which will help with some of the more extreme critical injuries that we're bound to suffer. When we start getting arms and legs dismembered or some really more gory, gruesome style critical injuries, surgery is going to be the skill that's going to help save my fellow characters. Pharmaceuticals is the second tree. What this provides is the ability to create medicine and stims. So this is your health potions, if you will, as well as some rapid detox, some antibiotics, some stims, some surges for adrenals, and basically creating pharmaceuticals to help advance the rest of the party. And our cryosystem operator tree is about using a technology called cryosystem where you can start placing injured or dying bodies into a cybernetic sealed body bag that has a special fluid that's inserted that basically locks the person into stasis and starts assisting natural healing. So if you want to think from Star Wars, it's basically Bacta tanks. So you could have a bag of Bacta, or at higher levels of cryosystem, you can have an actual Bacta tank of your own to help your party with natural healing. So I'm at rank 4, so I'll have 4 points to allocate. So I'm going to go ahead and allocate 2 points to surgery, and I will allocate 2 points to pharmaceuticals, and I'm not going to allocate anything to cryosystems. So take that away. More specifically, by adding the 2 points to surgery, for every rank in surgery, I gain a new skill, the surgery skill, at... Go ahead.
Which you can only get by spending a point in that tree, correct?
Exactly. For every point spent in the surgery tree, I gain 2 ranks in the surgery skill. I've spent 2 points in the tree, so I'm now at rank 4 in the surgery skill.
Awesome.
For the Medtech pharmaceutical tree, for every rank that I have, I can pick a specific pharmaceutical from a list of 5 options. So I have ranks of 2, so I'm going to go ahead and pick rapid detox, which is a stim that helps remove or defend a target from drugs, poisons, intoxicants, purging the effects of those from a person's system. I'm also going to pick, for my second one, speed heal, which when injected provides the person the ability to actually heal themselves. This is one of the only, if not the only, ways to provide on-the-fly healing. Everything else in this game is long-term natural healing. So for a very gritty combat, scary system where people are going to be taking damage frequently, this is one of the only real ways that somebody can be healed. So I took both of those stims. I also gained the ability to craft those stims. And the way that the craft is it's 200 gold. We call them Eurobucks in this system. So for 200 Eurobucks, I can create 2 times my rank, so now 4 stims, by making a skill check with a DV of 13, which we'll talk about later on. But if I can basically create those stims by spending 200 gold, it's 200 Eurobucks, and doing a skill check with a difficulty value of a 13. So that will sum up how I have listed my Medtech. If I had placed 2 ranks or 3 ranks or 4 ranks into the cryo system, I would have gained my own cryo bag, a body bag. I would have had a cryo tank that I would have had access to. And if I'd placed enough points down that tree, I would have had my own cryo tank in my own house or a location of my choosing. I decided not to go that route because we're still living in the slums and the stacks in a container park. And I don't particularly want a 5,000 Eurobuck piece of equipment in my container park where it can be very easily acquired by adversary parties.
Stolen, damaged, or destroyed. Yeah.
Consider this experience from running with Dan in the past.
So it's funny that you were talking about how gritty the system is. I was actually watching a live play the other day, and there were 4 players in the live play. In the first session, one of them was unconscious with missing an arm. 2 had been killed in like the 3rd combat of that session, which, by the way, the players are the ones who started that combat. And 1 person was left injured but alive.
This is a game where the question is, when will your character die? Not will your character die. We're going into combat. Who will die this combat?
It was pretty funny. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I think next step is the life path.
Okay, so jumping back to page 42, which gives me the link to page 43 to go through the life path. So this is going to be a series of tables that I can roll on to help develop a background for the character. Alternatively, I can just select from the table, and that's in any of the 3. That could be Street Runner, Edge Runner, or Complete Package. You can choose whether you want to roll on the table or you can choose just straight from there. So the first table that I'm going to look at is going to be a cultural origin. So what region is this character from? North America, Central America, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, and Pacific Islander, so on, with some variations inside of there. So I've previously rolled on this table, and I've actually, from my character concept, I know that this character is from Paris, actually, and he has recently immigrated to our player city of Lumens Nuevo, if I'm saying that correctly.
You are.
So I know that because I know that he is from Paris, I'm not going to roll on this table. I'm just going to type in for my, and it's going to be on the second page, life path. My cultural origins are going to be Western Europe.
It also means that he will have English and French as his languages. So that's also part of that table.
Yeah, so everybody will start with street slang as their language. And then from this table, you get to pick one additional language that relates to your cultural origin. So since this character is from Paris, his additional free language will be French. And he'll start with 4 ranks in that. And I believe it's, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that will be the first table, which will be my cultural origin. The next table that I'll look at is the personality, or what are you like? And there's 10 options here. I'm going to go ahead and just, this is somewhere that I personally don't like rolling for because I I have a character concept in mind and I want to play a particular style of character. So this gives me options like shy and secretive, arrogant, proud, aloof, stable, serious, silly, fluff-headed, and so on. The type of characters that I generally play, that I'm more comfortable playing, are going to be the friendly, outgoing. So I will just go ahead and select that option from the table as well.
Mm-hmm. Which is totally fine. Picking your options from the table versus rolling. A lot of the rolling to me comes down to if you're not sure how you want to play your character, or you kind of want to speed through some of this process. The tables are kind of excellent for that, but they are also really good at giving you an idea of something you may not have thought of. So I think they're good. But yeah, okay. So friendly, outgoing.
Okay, so the next one that we'll look at is the clothing style. So this is what is the type of clothes that my character likes to be dressed in, not necessarily the type of clothes that they are dressed in. That'll be a gear selection later. But this is just what is their preference? What type of clothes do they desire? So again, there's 10 options here. I will, again, I'm just going to go ahead and pick from this list. So there's like generic chic, urban flash, business wear, high fashion, bag lady chic, gang colors, nomad leathers. Again, 10 options. In my mind, this Medtech from France is likely going to be wearing some of the urban flash style, which is characterized as flashy clothing, technological streetwear. So imagine that, you know, the jackets with the LED lights, very from Blade Runner's kind of my mindset with that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then hairstyle on the same table. I'm just going to go ahead and roll for this one. So I'm going to switch over to roll 20, and I'm going to roll a 1d10 to pick from this table my
on
option.
what his hairstyle is.
On what my hairstyle is going to be. So I rolled a 6. So I'm looking at this table. A 6 corresponds to striped hair. So his hair is going to be a little bit, I think it's going to be longer. He likes to keep it in a ponytail, but he does have stripes of hair dye that go through the hair to keep it kind of decorated. Yeah. So we'll keep the striped hair from there.
Okay.
Just quickly rolling on the table to go from there. The next table that we're going to look at is going to be what do I value most? So this is kind of virtues. It's what is the thing that I desire most in the world? Money, honor, honesty, knowledge, love, power, family, friendship, and so on. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and roll, but if I don't like the result, I'm going to re-roll because there are some ones that I just can't play with. But we'll see. We'll see what the dice gods give me for today. So let's see. My first attempt, I roll a 5, which corresponds to knowledge, and that is something that I can work with. So I will utilize knowledge. So I rolled on the table, and then if I didn't like it, I was going to re-roll, but I liked knowledge is something that I like, so I'll go ahead and keep that. Next one is how do I feel about most people? Am I neutral? Do I like most people? Do I hate most people? Do I consider people tools? Do I consider them untrustworthy? Or do I want to wipe them all out and let the cockroaches take over? So okay, lots of options for this one. Again, I have a particular play style that I like. So I'm just going to go with the fact that I like most everyone. I like most people.
Yeah.
As far as things that I value the most valued person in my life. This could be a parent, brother, sister, lover, pet, teacher, public figure, hero, or just, no one. So I will roll for this one. And I rolled a 1. So 1 corresponds to a parent. This could get interesting in a little bit. So we'll write that one down and we'll see where this goes. My most valued possession. So this is an item or an artifact that I have. Actually, I'm going to rewind slightly. The most valued person in my life, I think that for the character story that I have in my mind, parent wouldn't work. My idea is that this character, when he was in Paris, he got involved in a party gang and got himself into some trouble. So his parents, who were members of the Traumatech Corporation, made a contract with Traumatech to have the corporation move his family from Paris to the city of Lumens Nuevo. While in the city of Lumens Nuevo, his parents actually, while on a coming home from a grocery store run, were actually caught in the crossfire of a gang war, and both of his parents have been were murdered, and he survived, though losing his arm in the process. So because of the fact that both of his parents are already dead in this story that I've created in my mind, I know that the most valued person cannot in fact be his parent. So I'm going to go ahead and roll again on that chart. And I got a 7, which corresponds to a teacher or mentor.
Which could be done.
Which lines up a little bit. That can easily be added into the story.
Yeah.
For my most valued possession, this could be a weapon, a piece of clothing, a photograph, a diary. I'm going to go with a musical instrument. In fact, not just any musical instrument. This is going to be the violin that my character's mother used to play for him, that he would attempt to take violin lessons as a kid, but always kind of never wanted to put forth the energy, and it was very begrudging violin lessons. But now that she's gone and he's not going to get the chance to do that again, he's holding on to this violin for someday actually learning to play in her honor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that gives me my most valued possession. So for my family background, so this is going to be kind of who my family was growing up. I'm going to go ahead and roll on this table, and I'm going to see what the dice gods say today. So this is a 4. 4 corresponds to a nomad pack. Now that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Let's go with, I'm going to select probably based off the idea that they were members of the Traumatech Corporation. I think my family is probably going to be corporate technicians. So middle class, comfortable apartments in the Beaverville, suburban homes. We had minivans, corporate run technical schools, kind of like 1950s America crossed with 1984.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are in a corporate sponsored house, you're also getting corporate sponsored surveillance in your house.
Yeah, your house is never really your house.
For the environment that I grew up in, another 10 options here. And I'm going to select. See, none of these really match with a corporate tech con apt. So this will be, I'm going to go with a corp zone. So this is going to be a zone in Paris, which is corp owned in the Beaverville. It's walled off from the rest of the city. So he grew up in a matter of safety, walled off from everybody else. Now this is where, moving to the next kind of section, it's what happened to my family? Why is my family not here anymore? What's the story here? In the time of the Red, world is still recovering from the World War, from nuclear explosions. So chances are something's happened to me and my family along the way. So I can roll on this table to come up with some tragic event that occurred to my family. And so based off the idea that I had in my mind, I'm going to select that my family was killed and I am the only survivor. Based off the fact that my family was in a random happenstance crossfire in a gang war. you could get significantly more dramatic into that, but I have enough other drama things that are going on that it's like, okay, I think that not everything needs to be super dramatic. I kind of like that sometimes just random things happen.
Right.
For the next section, we're going to skip over the life goals block for a minute, and we're going to start talking about friends. It's not all grim. Sometimes your character links up with people that have your back. So who are the friends that you have? So to figure out your friends, first, it's a two-step process here. So you're supposed to roll a d10 and subtract 7 to see just how many friends you've made in your life so far. So there's a low chance that you'll actually have friends, but rolling a d10 and subtracting 7, minimum 0. I know that one of the house rules that Dan has been looking at is switching that to a minimum of 1 to add contacts to the city, to give the city more personality, and to have more chance for actual role play with other people or some NPCs being developed. So I'm going to roll 1d10, subtract 7 with a minimum of 1. And it looks like I rolled a 1. So the actual dice came up with 4, which would have given me a -3, but minimum of 1. So I'll have 1 friend that's got my back.
You're going to have an extra 3 enemies.
Probably. So now we're going to give some backstory to this character. So I'm going to roll a 1d10 to figure out who this friend is. Rolled a 1, which corresponds to this friend is like an older sibling. Is just like an older sibling to me. Okay. Now, enemies is the one that I was thinking of, where they actually go significantly more in depth onto who this enemy person is. And it's the same concept of you roll 1d10, subtract 7, minimum 0, which Dan is saying minimum 1, which I
Minimum
think
1, yeah.
1d10
Everybody has made enemies. Everyone.
All right. So I also rolled a 1, a result of a 1 for this. So I will have 1 enemy. So this is going to be a series of 3 dice now, or 4 dice, excuse me, to figure out who they are. So the first one is so I have a 10. I'm just going to roll them all. A 10, a 4, a 6, 10, 4, 6, and 9. What does that mean? So let's look at our table. So a 10. So my enemy is a booster gang. A 4 is what caused us to be enemies, accused of cowardice. What can they throw at you? That was a 6. So they can throw an entire gang, which makes sense, of 1d10 plus 5 people. And then what's going to happen if we actually do come across each other? I rolled a 9, which gives me a setup for a crime.
I can use that very easily.
So this gang is going to attempt to set my character up for a crime that I didn't commit, basically framing me for something. So somewhere along the ways, I have created an enemy of this booster gang. Likely, I accused them of cowardice. Potentially, this is the same booster gang, or this is one of the booster gangs that was involved in the shootout that killed the parents. They could throw a whole gang at me, and they're probably trying to set me up for some crime that I didn't commit. I don't know, Dan. Setting up for a crime, I don't know if this is really kind of making sense for what a booster gang would do to the character. Some of the other options I'm seeing is go into a murderous rage and try to physically rip their face off.
So this is sure, but keep in mind that this part on the table for Sweet Revenge isn't just what they would do to you; it's also what you would do to them, and it's an example of what you would be willing to go to finish them off or to get them back. So it doesn't necessarily mean literally set them up for a crime they didn't commit, or that they would do that to you. It means that's how far they would go, and how far you would go. So if this is that gang, maybe we should change also the cowardice, because if this is the booster gang that was participatory in your parents' murder, then
Cause the
maybe,
loss of a lover, friend, relative.
yep, number 2. And if you are willing to murder them on site, then that's their sweet revenge.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. Is they're going to set out to murder? Because they did kill the parents. I need to go full Batman on them, and
The only
murderous rampage.
the only thing of cowardice I could think about was like you tried to pull the Bruce Wayne from Dark Knight, or from Batman Begins, where you are this kid and you confronted them, and you're like, "Let's fight, let's do this," and they're like, "Nah, man, you're like one guy. We're like 15 guys. We're not gonna fight you. That was an accident." And you're like, "You guys are all cowards," and they say, "Okay, we got you, fam. Now we're gonna hunt you."
Yep.
So I think
Yep.
this makes a little bit more sense.
I agree. So I've got one friend that's like an older sibling. I've got an enemy of an entire booster gang who the booster gang and I will kill each other on sight because of our past altercations. So the next thing I need to look at is my tragic love affair. So we have to have some sort of romantic interest or a ex or a lover from some sort in the past, and we need to figure out who this person is, if they even existed. So this will be the same, rolling 1d10, subtract 7, minimum of now 1, to see if I have had any tragic love affairs in the past. It's still minimum 1. So for the minimum 1, so now let's go ahead and roll to see who this person is, what happened with this tragic love affair. So I rolled a 1, which on the chart tells me that my lover died in an accident. Interesting. I have an idea for what that could be, which I will hold for now. Keep you all in suspense. And the wrap up, so the last part of the life path to roll is going to be, what is my life goal? What is the one thing that is my driving factor? Is it getting rid of a bad reputation, gaining power, getting off the street, living down the past life, hunting down those responsible for your miserable life and making them pay? So as almost all of these are 10 options, there's another 10 options. So I'll just roll a d10 to see what the dice gods say, with the caveat that if I don't like it, I'm going to reroll. So I rolled a 7, which is get what's rightfully mine. I don't like that one. That doesn't seem to fit. Do over. Let's see, a 9, gain fame and recognition. I could work with that. Fame and recognition. Okay. So I know that my character is a Medtech from Western Europe. He's going to be from France, from Paris specifically. He's generally a friendly, outgoing style character, likes to wear urban flash style clothing, keeps his hair long in a ponytail, but is striped through with different colored hair dye. Things that he values most is knowledge and learning and becoming smarter. Feelings about most people is he generally likes people in general, except for that goddamn booster gang. I have a mentor. That is someone that's taught me, that's brought me up. As my parents passed, this person kind of took me in and taught me the ropes. I do keep my mom's violin with the hope of reminiscing about her, nostalgia, and kind of teaching myself how to play. Family background, so we're corporate technicians. My family was from the Trauma Tech Corp before we immigrated to Lumens Nuevo. So we grew up in Beaverville, which would be a corp zone walled off from the rest of the city. Only survivor of that accident, and I want to gain fame and recognition for my own medtech skills. Somewhere I have a friend that's like an older sibling. I think I might make that one of the other player characters. We'll see as the rest of the team makes their character what that ends up looking like. To be decided on who that like an older sibling friend is. I had a girlfriend at one point in time that died in an accident, and this booster gang that we've talked a lot about.
So we also have the Medtech specific life path
Mm-hmm.
that might also work and kind of shuffle in with some of the stuff that you've already rolled.
So I'm now going to switch to the Medtech life path, which is another. I think this is only like 3 or 4 tables, and this is going to be a series of D10s or D6s.
Yeah, it's much shorter. It's like 2 pages, 5 tables, I think.
So the first question is, what kind of Medtech are you? And I have options like surgeon, general practitioner, psychiatrist, therapist, ripper doc, body sculptor, or forensic pathologist. There's 10 different options. I'm going to go ahead and select trauma medic. My idea is that this character, as my parents went under contract with Traumatech to leave Paris to come to Lumens Nuevo, part of the contract was that they would work for the corp as effectively indentured servants for a number of years. When the parents died in a non-work related incident, the number of years of servitude all piled onto my character. So now he owes like 15 years of his life to Traumatech to pay for being immigrated from Paris to Lumens Nuevo. So with that, he is a member of the Traumatech Corporation as his day job. But the problem with the Traumatech Corporation, or one of the problems with Traumatech Corporation, is that you protect the client no matter who the client is, and at the expense of non-clients. So if I am under contract for a super bad booster gang lord who calls upon Traumatech to come save him from the firefight, I have to go protect this booster gang lord, no matter how evil this person might actually be. And if there is a little child that gets injured along the way, I will not be allowed in my Traumatech role to assist this person, assist the child. So the character has kind of struggled with that morality. And so in his off time, when he's not working for Traumatech, he is taken to the streets as an edge runner to provide assistance to the people that he can't provide assistance for throughout the day, to try to kind of balance the scales a little bit of the morality for saving the bad guys and not saving the good guys. So what kind of med tech am I? Trauma medic. A long-winded way to say that.
All right. Do you have a partner or do you work alone?
So when I am in Traumatech, then I work with Traumatech. When I am an edge runner working with the group, then I am the only general person that works with a group. So I would say that for our purposes, I will be not working with a partner. Okay. But to your question, that is one of the questions that is asked. Do I have a partner or do I work alone? Depending on how I answer that determines which table I roll on for further guidance, character build guidance. So because I work alone, I don't have to roll to see or to define who my partner is. So what is my workspace like? So this will be a D6 roll. So I'll switch over to roll 20 to make my D6 roll. And I rolled a 1, which corresponds to workspace is sterilized daily. Sterilized daily in the morning like clockwork. I have to keep my space nice and clean and sterilized because who knows what poor soul is going to be on my kitchen table getting his arm stitched back on. Okay, next question is, who are my main clients? And this will be a D6. So I'll switch to roll 20 for a roll to 5, which correlates to local nomads and fixers who bring me wounded clients.
Which also works for the trying to give back.
Yep. So I have some nomad and fixer friends, it seems, that I've contacted with that as other Edge Runner teams get into trouble or other nomad families need help, they will reach out to me and I will show up. It kind of be a off the books, off the record medical assistance to their people. Where do I get my supplies? D6 is a total of a 6, which is night market for scoring deals.
So Mark brought up a valid point, which I had considered earlier, but hadn't mentioned it yet. You help local nomads and fixers that bring you wounded clients. We actually have a fixer who's going to be making their character later in the series that is planning on playing a fixer. So it could be that that's one of the main connections there, one of your connections to the group there.
That makes a lot of sense, and I'm totally open for that if Naomi is.
Yep. Good point, Mark.
So supplies for the source, I rolled a 6, which is hitting the night markets. I think I'm torn between that one or number 3, which is a local fixer brings me supplies in exchange for medical work. So it's like, yeah, man.
So both of those are applicable, and both of those require a fixer because
why not both?
Why not both? Because fixers are the ones that usually connect people with the night markets. So I think both of those are applicable in your situation, especially with the who you help.
Yes. And I should say in this game, a fixer isn't somebody who is actually fixing things like a technician or a medical tech doesn't fix people. A fixer is somebody that fixes people up and fixes them together in a social mean, almost like a fence or a person who has a lot of contacts to organize people to work together and to be the middleman to introduce person A to person B.
Yep. Very good point. That is different in this game. Yeah.
That threw me for a loop quite a few times as I have to be like, oh, a fixer is not somebody that actually fixes somebody. So that finishes up my role-specific light path. So what kind of medtech am I? A trauma medic. My workspace is sterilized daily, the morning like clockwork. My main clients are going to be, I have friends that are in the nomad families as well as some fixers who know me, know my work, and will bring their people to me to fix up at the expense that they'll do need to bring me medical supplies on occasion. And what they don't bring me, I'll hit up the local night markets to purchase for my own, looking for those deals. So that is about the first half of character generation, is figuring out the background of the person himself.
This is the main fluffy part of character creation. Now we're going to get into some of the more mechanical part of character creation with the numbers and stats and derived characteristics, gear, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to start on page 72, which is the statistics.
Okay, so statistics.
So Mark asks a good question. In the life path system, do we talk about where he works out of? Is he in immigration Nation, which is the immigrant locale in Lumens Nuevo? So part of the gear section also talks about what lifestyle the character sits at, because different lifestyles cost different amounts of money. If he has an apartment, if the contract he's on pays for housing, if he lives in a cube hotel, like where essentially he has a coffin that he sleeps in, or if he has a container somewhere, like a shipping container that is made into an apartment in Immigration Nation, for example. or emanation. So that's a part that we kind of get into nearer the end once we're dealing with how much money he has and where he's getting his money from. Another point of fact is that towards the end, we're also going to be talking about some contacts and locations that are good for this character in the city of Lumens Nuevo to help kind of shuffle this character, whose name he hasn't written down yet, to help shuffle this character into the world and give him attachments. So, mechanics. I'm going to start on page 72. I'm going to talk about stats really quick, and then we'll move to page 78, I think, which is actually putting numbers in. Did you have anything?
Nope, go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
What were you going to say?
You brought up the fact that I hadn't actually named my character yet, and that's a good point. Because my belief is that if I have a character from Paris that is working with the local edge runners here, there is no acceptable nickname other than the name Frenchie. 100%, that is what, no matter what he wants to be called or what his name is, that is what the rest of his team is going to call him, is Frenchie. So he's just accepted that.
The irony is, Lumens Nuevo, we haven't really talked about it yet, but it is essentially it's New Orleans. New Orleans, thanks to global warming and the different corporate wars and the like, New Orleans sunk into the ocean and was kind of destroyed. A couple of years ago, a couple of corporations got together and wanted to raise New Orleans from the ocean and rebuild it. And so they did. They rebuilt it into a city that many call Lumens Nuevo. And it is partial Creole, languages from all over in an area of the United States now called Dixie, which is a group of states that have kind of banded together in the new United States, but are still their own piece. So Lumens Nuevo actually has a bunch of people who speak Creole and a little bit of French, and there's a place called the French Quarter and whatnot. And still, his character is called Frenchie because he's one of the few people that, while Anthony wouldn't have an accent, while Anthony doesn't have an accent, this character definitely does.
Yes, and while this is a very French influenced area, there's not many people from France proper.
Nope. Yep.
So yeah, based off that, my belief is that no matter what he wants to be called, he will be called Frenchie by everybody else.
So it just became his handle.
So it just became his handle.
Nice. Okay, talking about statistics. So statistics are generally rated for 1 to 8, but 8 is the maximum. I usually figure around 2 to 3 is average, but we'll see how things play out. So you have different groups of stats. Starting off with the mental group, you have intelligence, willpower, cool, and empathy. Intelligence is how bright you are, but also cleverness, awareness, perception, etc. Willpower being the determination, ability to face danger and or stress. Cool is your ability to impress and influence others through your character and charisma, but also how well you keep your cool in social situations. Empathy is really interesting because it is your ability to relate and care for others and take others into consideration. But it also factors into your humanity. Do you want to talk real quick about humanity, Anthony?
So humanity is a measure of how, I guess it's easier to talk about it in the inverse. Everybody starts with a high amount of humanity, but then as they start voluntarily replacing perfectly functional portions of their own body with cybernetics, you start going down this path of, are you still human? Then you add more cybernetics. Are you still human? Then you add even more cybernetics. And as you add more and more things, voluntarily replacing perfectly functional parts of your body, that question becomes harder and harder to answer of, are you still human? So we relate that in this game with a measure called humanity, where you start off with a humanity equal to your 10 times your empathy, number of points. And that is a matter of how much human you are. And then as you add cybernetics, that number gets reduced. So the more cybernetics you have, the lower your current humanity score actually becomes. If your score gets too low, you'll start suffering what's referred to in this game as cyberpsychosis, which is a mental condition where you start basically disassociating yourself with your own body, and people start going on murderous rampages and all sorts of bad shenanigans. So cyberpsychosis is a real thing that also kind of acts as a limit to prevent people from getting too many cybernetics. What I think is really interesting about it in this game, as opposed to other games that I've played, is that because of the emphasis on voluntarily replacing perfectly functional parts of your body, if you lose an arm in some sort of wound and you have to just get a standard prosthetic, that's not going to make you feel like you're any less human than you were before, because it's not something you're doing intentionally. Your arm was destroyed and you had to get a prosthetic to continue being a human and acting like a human. But if your arm is perfectly functional and you just say, you know what, I just want to have a grenade launcher in my arm, well, then you're slowly starting to slide into, are you more machine than man? And you start losing that humanity.
And as a game master, one of the things I find unique and interesting about humanity in this is that it's not just cybernetics. If you encounter monstrous things like, I'm trying to think of a better example, but straight up mutilations or something that is
the cannibalism that's in the South.
Yep.
South Lumens Nuevo.
So if you witness some of these events, you could lose humanity from that. And they have a rule system in this for therapy to help get yourself back into a proper mind space and get some of that humanity back. If you have cyberware, like what Anthony talked about, you'll never be back to 100% of what you were at character creation, but you can earn some of that back. Another point is, for every 10 points you lose in humanity, you actually lose a point of empathy as well. So you soon, as you are becoming less and less human, I guess is the way Anthony was putting it, you have less and less concern and awareness of the people around you.
It's much harder to connect to people, and people become more uncomfortable talking to a robot than they would be talking to a normal human.
Yep. So empathy, really neat. You have a combat group of stats: technique and reflexes. Technique is your ability to manipulate tools or instruments. It's not the same as reflexes. It's more like how it covers the knack of using tools. Reflexes is your response time and coordination used in aiming, throwing, juggling, etc. So hand-eye coordination, but also body reflexes. Then you have the fortune group, which right now is just luck, and that's how the gods see chance to see you. You essentially use luck to give you some advantages to some of your rolls. So it's a neat stat. And then the physical group, which is body, dexterity, and movement. Body being your toughness, ability to stay alive and conscious through physical mass, structure, and qualities, but it's also strength in what strength would be in other stats. Body kind of encompasses all of that. Then you have dexterity, which is your overall physical competence, balancing, leaping, jumping, combat, and the like. And then you have movement, which is your speed of movement, running, leaping, swimming, etc. So those are your main statistics. There are 10, which is a lot of stats. Most of the games that people play have 5 or 6 stats. I played a game once that had 3. But there are 10 in this one that also drag into the other ones. So Anthony was talking about the different modes of character creation and how some of them have stat lines that make it easier. So like Street Rat, for example, you would roll a d10 and it would just give you your stats. Usually between 4 and 8. Usually between 4, yeah, between 4 and 8. I'm looking and that's what I'm seeing. But for us, we're going to be doing the complete package. So,
Yes. So for the complete package, so looking at the character sheet just to the right of my portrait, you'll see all the abilities that Dam's just talking through: Int, Reflex, Dex, Technique, Cool, and so on. With the complete package, you're allotted 62, that's 6-2, different points that you can allocate however you choose amongst those blocks, those abilities. If you were to go with the Street Runner, there's a table for each role. So there's a Medtech table. There are 10 different stat arrays. So if I rolled on the array and I rolled a 4, I could look at the table and it will give me what my intellect, reflex, dexterity, technique, and so on would be. So I basically randomly choose an array. So that's going to be the Street Runner. Edge Runner is slightly more complicated. So it uses the same table, except for this time, instead of rolling once and getting the entire array, I will roll once to determine which array I pick intellect from. Then I roll again to figure out which array I pick reflex from, roll a third time for which array do I pick dexterity from. So all the numbers are predefined, you're just randomly choosing. Where it gets slightly interesting is that not all of those arrays actually sum to 62. So you actually have the chance that you might end up with an array that sums to 64, 68. I think I saw one that was up to 70. But you also might get a 56 or a 58. So you're kind of doing a little bit more of a gamble by rolling on an array.
if your GM is allowing for it, to me, it's the same as telling somebody, yeah, we're rolling stats, roll 3d6 or 46 and drop the lowest. And then you have a player that's like, no, I totally rolled 3 18s. Okay, man.
Right. Yeah. So you have that option to either Street Runner pick a roll once and pick the entire array, no matter what it sums to. And once you roll, you can't re-roll. Or you could do the Edge Runner, which is the halfway where you roll each one independently, and who knows what that number could sum to. Or what we're going to do is the pick your own, the complete package, and that's going to give me 62 points to start with. So the way that I like to do it and the way that they recommend is you just start with 6s down the line, which will get me to, I think it's 6D.
Yep, 6-0. Yep.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, so 10 abilities. So I've spent 60 of my 62. And then I just do a lot of subtract 1 from one ability, add 1 to another. So I'm just going to fast forward a little bit through that process to come up with the numbers that I'm going to utilize for Frenchie. So I've prioritized reflex, which is going to be his ability to hit with a ranged weapon. As a member of Trauma Team, the way I see that their team is set up is that because they're going into high combat situations a lot of the times, the members of the team, which are composed of a senior doctor or surgeon with 2 technicians assisting, with 2 security and a pilot of their aircraft, which is basically a flying ambulance. So it's a, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-person team. Every person of the team needs to be able to do every role. So by having a reflex of 7, that shows that he is capable of operating on the security role, keeping the other medtechs safe as they perform the surgery or paramedics as required. Technique, I also prioritized higher because this is going to be his ability to actually utilize his medtech skills and fix people up, using first aid, using paramedics, and then actually fixing cybernetics as necessary, or fixing the jet itself if they have problems. Cool, I got a little bit, I had to pull some points from somewhere, so cool is going to be a measure really just of how cool the person is. And so he's going to be not quite as high as that as other characters might be. His willpower is slightly less, but it is what it is. Luck, I like to see that like to think that he's a little bit lucky. And then body, showing his physical training, and empathy is a little bit higher as his ability to empathize with the people around him. Plus, I know that he's going to have some significant cyberware, so I needed to have a higher empathy so that I don't immediately start a character that's already in cyber psychosis. So I've set up my array, starting with 6s and go up or down as it happens. I should comment that I know that Dan and Mark are talking in another window that I have to alt-tab back and forth. So as you guys hear me go quietly, randomly, it's me trying to catch up on their conversations.
Mark had a question. What's the stigma or outlook on wounding a trauma team member? Is in society, is it like frowned upon, or is it a badge of honor if you're in a booster game? And I was telling him I'm gonna have to look into that because
I think it depends on the person, depends on the gang.
I think it depends on the group. Yeah. I think for some gangs, it's like a badge of honor, like attacking a police officer, a lawman, or one of the Dixie Rangers. If you get away with it, keep in mind that shooting at trauma team means that you're now focusing them on you. So if they're not in the middle of something, they may come after you. It's one of my favorite lines from The Artemis, which is a movie, almost cyberpunk, about a hotel that caters to everyone who pays a fee. If you haven't seen it, Anthony, I would highly suggest it because it's very much like Trauma Team. But it, everyone's favorite Drax, the actor who plays Drax. I'm going to give Mark a second to give me his name.
Bautista.
Thank you, Bautista, who I love in everything he's been in, Blade Runner 2047, everything. But anyway, he plays a nurse who says, "Do you see this badge? It means I know, and I not only know how to heal you, I know how to kill you." And that's not like I'm not saying the phrase correctly, but it's an interesting point that they have the knowledge to heal you, which means they also know how to make it hurt.
Yes. I did not take the Hippocratic Oath, or however you pronounce it, to do no harm. So this character is basically just a cyberpunk version of a paramedic going into high combat situations to save the client. So by any means necessary, save the client. If I have to kill everybody that's around the client to save the client, that's fairly common.
So with that being the case, I'm sure that people that were trying to kill whoever you're trying to save would fire upon Trauma Team because they don't care anymore. They're trying to kill whoever you're trying to save. But if you're going in to save a CEO who was choking on a shrimp, firing at you just because you're flying your ship over there probably isn't brightest.
Yep.
Okay, so you have your stats.
Yes. So now that the stats are defined, the next thing that we're going to look at is the skills themselves.
Well, derived statistics.
Oh, derived statistics. You're right. Yeah. So there are a number of derived statistics that we need to look at. The first one's going to be hit points. So your hit points is going to be, it's a formula that's based on your body and your willpower. So the higher you have in each, there's a formula that's utilized to tell you what your hit point score is going to be. So with my willpower of 5 and my body of 7, looking at the table, that tells me that I have a total of 40 is my max hit points. You become seriously wounded at half of your max hit points. So as soon as I hit 20 hit points left, I'll be considered serious wounded, at which point I'll get -2 to all actions. So every dice roll I make, I'll get a -2 because I'm now seriously wounded. If I ever hit a hit point of 0, I am now going to be taking death saves to figure out if my character is able to stay alive. So the way that this works in this game is, I believe it's at the beginning of the round of your turn. If you are at 0 hit points, you will make a death save. Your death save is equal to your body. So I will have to roll a 1d10. If I roll equal to or less than my body, I survive for that round. If I roll greater than my body, my character is permanently dead.
Yeah, there is no 3 death saves.
It's one save. Well, one death, but I continue to hang on to life until somebody can heal me.
And if you succeeded at your death save this round, you have to make another one next round at
Yes.
a penalty.
Yep. And the seriously wounded -2 to all actions penalty applies. So I'll be rolling 1d10, subtracting the 2 from being seriously wounded, and I'll still need to score. Actually, I guess it'd probably be a +2 in that case, but whatever.
It gets worse. The point is, it gets worse and worse and worse.
Yes, which is why it's important that we have the Medtech to help keep people alive. Being able to provide the stims, the healing to help people not make the death save, as well as to provide therapy as people start getting close to cyberpsychosis. So the next derived stat is going to be a measure of my humanity. So it's going to start off at just 10 times my empathy. So I'm starting at 70. This is my current max. So that should be it for derived.
I think it is, yeah.
Okay. Yep. So we'll jump back to 42. Okay, so that's the derived statistics. So the next thing that I'm going to look at is the skills themselves. Do you want to go through the skills? There's a lot.
There's a lot, yeah. No, I'm good without going through the skills. We'll go through the skills that you're taking, and that will help explain kind of.
Okay, so there's a number of skill groups: awareness skills, body skills, control skills, etc. I've never counted to see just how many skills there are, but there's a lot, and it actually calls it out in the book that there's a lot as well. But not every skill will likely be a player in your game. So to talk to your GM to see if there are certain skills that aren't going to be utilized that you can just negate off your list. So there's 3 different methods to pick your skills. The street runner, you just say, I am a medtech, and it defines all of your skills for you. So looking at the medtech,
including numbers.
Yes. So I know that if I'm doing a street runner, I know that my athletics would be 2, my perception would be 2, my paramedics would be 6. It defines all of my skills for me. I don't have to do any thinking. It's all right there. Edge runner, the next level up, it's predefined what the skills are, but I get to choose how many ranks to put in which skill. So it's kind of halfway. And the one that we're going to use on complete package is I am provided 86 skill points that I can allocate as I see fit through all of the different skills on the page. With the caveats that no skill can be higher than a 6, and there are a number of skills that must be at least a 2. And I don't know if you can see on the character sheet, but those are bolded to emphasize that there must be a minimum of 2 in those skills. So I have 86 points to allocate. I'm just going to allocate as we're going. So I'll put 2 in concentration, being able to keep his cool and concentration of healing people as bullets are flying. A little bit of perception, partly because it's bolded and because he just needs to be able to see what's going on around him. We're going to add 2 to athletics to have a little bit of run and climbing and getting around, plus it's a minimum. Resist torture and drugs. So anytime that I'm poisoned or being interrogated or tortured, I will roll utilizing that skill against the difficulty value to see if I can resist. So in this case, I roll 1d10 plus my skill rank of 4 plus my stat of 5 is 9. So 1d10 plus 9 to beat whatever difficulty value Dan tells me I need to beat. Stealth is a minimum of a 2. Piloting an air vehicle. So this is going to be 2, but you'll notice that to the left, there's an X2. Learning how to pilot an air vehicle takes more time than most other skills. It takes more effort. So for every 2 ranks that I put into this skill, it will cost me double the number of points. So even though I'm at rank 2, it actually costs me 4 points to learn how to do that. It just takes more time to learn how to pilot an air vehicle.
More time, more resources. Yeah.
Exactly. Continuing down the list, education. It's important to him. He was raised in a corp in a Beaverville by traumatech parents, so his education is actually fairly high. He's well educated. Everybody starts with and then I put 2 ranks into street slang, just your ability to communicate the common tongue. I get 4 free points in my home language, which would be French. Continuing down, so science of biology. He'll have 2 ranks because of the training that he's received in that field. Brawling, so his ability to do hand-to-hand combat, fisticuffs and grappling, minimum of a 2, so he'll be at a 2 for that. Evasion, his ability to dodge hand-to-hand combat, his ability to dodge grapples, and for some characters, this is also can be used instead of the default difficulty value to be hit by a ranged weapon. So ranged weapons will have a native difficulty value of what's required to hit. For some characters, I can replace that native difficulty value with my score of a 12. I don't think I would get to do that with this character. Let's see, play instrument, violin. Because of his training, he had 2 ranks of violin, the limited amount of training that he did. Shoulder arms is going to govern his ability to utilize assault rifles and longer guns and weapons that you would place on your shoulder to fire, as opposed to archery or handguns or heavy weapons being grenade launchers or rocket launchers.
Or auto-fire weapons like automatic rifles, that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there are some automatic fire weapons, shoulder arms specifically, or Uzis, assault rifles, that you can go full auto fire and spray and pray, which is a whole different skill, which would utilize, again, because it's harder to learn how to control an auto fire weapon, it'll cost you twice the number of skills. For his social skills, his ability to have a conversation, to learn from people, to talk to people is going to be a little bit higher at a 6. And his human perception is going to be at a 6. His ability to read people, to see what their tics are, to see if they're lying, to determine, just to understand what people are trying to say. Persuasion is a minimum of a 2, and it's his ability to persuade people to do what he thinks they should do. Basic tech will be my next one, which is his ability to just repair basic things that are not governed by any of the other tech skills. So this would be fixing armor, maybe fixing some weapons, fixing just generic things. Fixing cybertech, he'll be at a 4. First aid is a minimum of 2, which you would think that as a trauma tech, he would have a higher points in first aid, but he took it to the next level and he actually invested in the skill of paramedic, which is again a ×2 skill. So what that'll provide for him is, so the 3 skills of first aid, paramedic, and surgery are utilized to protect or to resist or to heal others of different critical injuries. Lower level critical injuries might be saved by first aid. Medium levels might need paramedic, and the highest levels, or the worst case critical injuries, would require surgery.
So can you give us some examples?
If you give me a few moments to find them in the book.
So I think, depending on the wound charts and stuff, if you were to, like, if somebody takes damage to their hearing or to their ear, something like that might be a first aid. In the end, so it's interesting how this works, because a lot of injuries have multiple areas, right? So one of your lesser problems but can wait, like maybe you injured your ear, right? A bullet or a knife cut part of your ear away. First aid would be the first step to stop the bleeding, get it to where you're fine and you're not still bleeding, right? And then surgery would be longer term care. So there's some of these that are stabilize it, it's fine, and then when you have time, it has, this is what you need to roll for longer term care. Some of them, like getting your arm or your leg removed, first aid's not really going to do much other than maybe stabilize you, but you're going to have surgery either to reattach your leg, have a meat leg or a prosthetic installed, or have cyberware installed. Keeping in mind that even though you have to replace your leg now, if you are volunteering to get an upgraded piece of cyberware where you can stow your gun like Robocop, still takes away your humanity, because you could choose to have a normal prosthesis or a flesh leg reattached, which does not cause humanity. But these skills are pretty neat for how they work with recovery.
Exactly. So the looking at the chart now, so for every critical injury, there's a table that you'll roll on to figure out which injury the person is affected by. Each injury has both a quick fix and a treatment ability to heal it. So a quick fix is something that'll take a couple minutes to do and will generally last for a few hours, maybe the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then tomorrow it comes back. But if you want a treatment, that's going to take you a couple days, maybe a week or so, or longer, to permanently fix that injury. So some of the examples, a torn muscle, to quick fix could be first aid or paramedics. And there isn't really a treatment plan for that because you just kind of first aid's enough for that one. If you got a broken arm, a paramedic might be able to fix it real quick, but you might need either a more paramedic or a surgery role to actually fix that broken arm on a more permanent basis. Collapsed lung, you could do something quickly with paramedics, but if you want to treat it, it's going to take a surgery role.
Right.
And so on. So I don't have a lot of invested into first aid. I have all of my points invested into paramedic because anything that first aid can do, paramedic can also do, and paramedic can also do other things, which is probably why it's a rank 2 skill or ×2 skill. And because I'm a medtech, I have that surgery skill from my medtech role, which is the only way to get that skill. So I have kind of all bases covered a little bit with being able to do the paramedics. So that should sum up all of my skills, and then I'll just do a quick calculator math to make sure that I am spending my 86 points correctly. But that should sum to 86 with the mind that my French language is free and that I have 2 skills that are at a ×2.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
And I'll actually, I'm just going to double check those numbers later. But either way, it should sum up to 86 points.
Right.
Keeping in mind all of the bolded ones have a minimum of 2, and there are some skills that are a ×2 that'll take twice the number of ranks. So that should sum up all of my skills. All right, so after skills, we'll go to how do you buy your stuff?
Yay! Page 41, or 42, mind you, leads us to page 91 for a list of all weapons. You have essentially 2550, so 2,550 to spend on gear. So weapons, armor, gear, fashions, and cyberware. You have an additional 800 EB to specifically spend on fashion and fashion wear.
Yep. So I know that I have 2550 to spend on anything and an additional 800 to spend specifically on fashion and fashion wear. So I will skip to my weapons first because that's just the first one that is there. And I know that as a trauma tech, I've been trained on assault rifles. And so that is going to be the weapon of my choice, assault rifle. And an assault rifle is going to cost 500 Eurobucks. I will also need to buy some ammunition for my assault rifle. And assault rifle ammunition is 1 round per Eurobuck. So 100 rounds for 100 Eurobucks.
Also keep a note. We're actually gonna skip to something else and then come back to this, just because it makes a difference. Let's jump to page 118, and what that is a under normal circumstances, it's are you running out of cash? Here's some ways to make additional cash. But if we look at it first, it means that you have a little bit more to spend and maybe buy different things because you have more to spend.
Yes, that's a good point.
So some of the options here, if you want additional starting cash, and again, this is something as a GM, I would say you definitely need to get approved by your GM. These are things that can add to the story in trade for giving you more starting capital. So you can swing an additional 1,500 euros, so 1500 in cyberware, etc. If it makes sense for your story. So there's one where you join the covert military. So that could be joining a combat force for cyber grunts or black squads, black ops, joining different things that may or may not be super secret. There is take up a life of organized crime. So you're working for the mob, and the mob helps pay for some of your cyberware. There is selling out to a corporation. If a corporation specifically, if you're bankrolled by them and they want you to, either they paid for your cybernetics or they want you to be upgraded for a certain reason, that may be part of it. For example, Anthony's character, Frenchie, has 15 years debt to the Corporation, Trauma Team Corporation, right?
Yes. So he is 100% a corporate sellout. So I took this option of gain 1,500 additional Eurobucks in cyberware, but now this corporation owns my life. I am now effectively property of this corporation, so they can do as they see fit to their property, and it generally doesn't go well for the player.
Yeah. So coupled with that, with when you choose where it comes from, where the money comes from, there's something called the catch, which could be things like hostages. The company or the mob has hostages, blackmail, sabotage cybernetics. So there's something in there that glitches or part of a cybernetic software to keep you in line. Monitored, where they implant sensors or monitoring devices on you. Command kill, which is not nice. It means that they take control, and with a command word, make you kill something that you love. Company safeguards, and remote detonators. These are all options. They're not necessarily what is happening, but they are options. Okay, so that being the case, that grants you $1,500 more to put into cyberware. So now you don't have to worry about that being part of your gear.
And I guess absolutely. So I did take that option, and I will do that. But one thing we also did forget to mention is we jump right into the complete package, but the way that the other two work.
Oh yeah.
So for Street Runner, it's the same, where it will define for you, because I'm playing a Medtech. Here is the list of all the gear that I get. Then that's just what it is. So it prescribes for me what to choose. Edge Runner gives me a little bit of wiggle room on what I can choose, but the option that we're doing complete package is here's all the monies, go pick whatever the heck you want. So that's what we're going to go with, and I'm actually going to take the hint that Dan just gave me, and since Frenchie is a corporate sellout and he got 1,500 Eurobucks for cyberware, I'm going to skip straight to the cyberware that he was provided by the company. So it's going to be his left arm. It's not cyber eye. His left arm is going to be replaced with a cyber arm that has an embedded Medtech scanner.
So, under CyberArm, there are notes that tell you how many different pieces of hardware or that kind of stuff. It's not just your CyberArm. Most pieces of CyberTech have these options that you can add certain things to them. So what he's saying is the CyberArm, he's taking an upgrade that has additional slots that he can put pieces of equipment in. But each piece of hardware and its slotted upgrade also removes some humanity from you.
Yes. So the cyber arm, I have as I picked the cyber arm. Just having a cyber arm, making that choice is going to remove 7 humanity. So I'll go back up to my humanity because I have the cyber arm. It's at 63. I added the med scanner, which is an additional -7, which would be 56. So I'm down to 56 already. The Medtech scanner is actually a fairly, the cyber arm itself, I can only have 4 options of cyberware to attach to my cyber arm.
Mm-hmm.
The med scanner is a larger option, a larger contraption, so it's actually going to take 2 of my option slots. So I can only have so many things attached to my left cyber arm, and the med scanner being a larger item takes 2 of the slots. So I'm at -14 humanity. Both of those options were, I believe, 500 Eurobucks each. So I've already spent 1,000 of my free 1,500. Being a corpse sellout, they also attach a free neural link, which is, I believe, -7 as well. And I'll double check that in a moment. Which is basically the brain socket, so I can start a neural linking cyberware into the spine and the brain. And I've also added a chipware socket so that I can insert different chips into the brain. Think Johnny Mnemonic, think the matrix of instantly learning skills to start. When a particular skill chip is inserted, I have the ability to know that skill, as well as recorded memories, recorded.
So of note, and there is a line there. You said think of the matrix to learn skills, but keep in mind you only have access to those skills while the chip is inserted.
Yes, and those chips cost monies. So I spend money to buy a chip that is a particular skill at a particular rank. And while that chip is inserted, I gain that skill at that rank, as well as other things. So that should be an additional -7. And so a neural link is a 7 humanity loss, and a chipware circuit is an additional memory loss. So we're at an additional -14. So now I'm at 42. So you can see my humanity is going down. And then whatever the tens digit is of your humanity is what your current empathy is. So I'm now down to 4, which you'll notice my empathy skills also went down as a result.
So, just for those of you out there, please keep in mind all he did was get a cyber arm that has a medical scanner and a Neuralink with no advantages there for the Neuralink, and he's already almost half of his humanity.
Yes,
so just keep that in mind when you're trying to think over some of the cyberware you want as characters. You lose it fast.
Yes, and as far as monies, so the left cyber arm cost me 500 Eurobucks. The med scanner cost me 500 Eurobucks. The Neuralink is free for a corpse sellout, and the chipware socket is 500. So that is the 1,500 that I got for Trauma Tech owning my life. Mm-hmm. So my question whether that was worth it to gain a chipware socket and a medtech scanner left arm, but alas, the decision was made. And by the parents, damn them, and I'm working off their debt. So with the 1,500 spent on cyberware for free, I still have my 2550 of all other things to spend.
Mm-hmm.
So just looking at the different gear lists, I'm also going to buy a light armor jacket, or light armor jack is what they're called in this game. both for my head as well as for my body. And these are each.
Because there are specific rules for armor on your head and armor on your body. A lot of other role-playing games don't have that, but you can take specific weapon damage or specific damage to your head and have specific critical injuries that affect your brain. So yeah.
The light armor jack has a stopping power of 11, so this will be 11 damage reduction to any attack that's coming in, which is the average for a starter character. And every time I take damage, the armor will suffer a cumulative -1 as it's being reduced in effectiveness.
As it's being chipped away.
It's just being chipped away. And because it's light armor, I don't suffer a penalty to dexterity or reflex or movement that some of the heavier armors would provide for me. Reflex, dexterity, and movement. So no penalty for light armor jack. My stopping power is only an 11, which is about enough to stop most light to medium pistols. So after my armor, my weapons, my armor, my character is going to have an agent, which is basically a smartphone that's not connected to the internet.
So I've been reading up on that. I actually misspoke, and so I'm gonna have to change the play-by post a little bit. But the agents can access the local data pool.
Okay.
So the city data pool, the agent can access, and the city data pool is gonna have some upgraded information from elsewhere, but it will have, it's like a city-based LAN or a city-based internet, kind of.
Gotcha. So intranet, limited, but it's a smartphone that has limited access to the internet.
Limited access to the internet, yeah.
So as Frenchie is creating his stems, he needs to have something to put those stems into. So he has four air hypo, needles that he can inject the pharmaceuticals into people. These are going to cost 50 Eurobucks each for a total of 200. He's going to have a Medtech bag with all of his tools of the trade that he keeps on him. A flashlight, because who doesn't need a flashlight? We're going to go ahead and add a tech bag because he also does repairs of various items and equipment, which is going to cost a whopping 500. A carry-all backpack, so he's got a bunch of luggage that he keeps on him as needed. He's going to have a poor quality violin. So each of these items, they have a standard level. This is how much it costs for a standard quality, but you can spend more monies to make your item better, or you can make, for a less effective item, you can have a price redux. So
is this poor quality because it is old and has not been kept up?
100%.
Okay.
So this is it's used. It is a family hand-me-down. It is not a.
It's a family hand-me-down, not necessarily a family heirloom.
Yes. So it is not the highest of quality. It's not been taken care of as much as he would hope that it is. But he is working to fix it, which also means that it's going to come at a cheaper price.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and add a piece of fashion wear because I just think that they're fun.
So can you talk to me about fashion wear?
So fashion wear is...
Because we're talking fashion W-A-R-E, not W-E-A-R, correct?
Yes. So fashion wear, W-A-R-E, is cyberware that is really for fun. It's not necessarily going to give you a lot of bonuses, but it's kind of the cool fashion wear. So you could have light up tattoos. You can have your hair turn to different colors as you see fit. You can have skin pigments. There's a lot of different types of fashion wear that you can utilize. The one that I'm going to start out with is a biomonitor, which is going to be a chip that's inserted into his body that measures his heart rate, his pulse, his blood pressure, his temperature, and feeds all of that health data to his agent and to Traumatech because they own his life. So I've added the BioWare, which or 1x Fashionware, which is a biomonitor for another 100.
And the reason that you want to kind of for now set apart the fact that that is fashion wear is because if you run out of monies, that can come out of your clothing allowance. Correct? Your 800.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm doing my calculator math here to see where I'm at. So I'm currently spent 1940 of my 2550. So I have more monies to spend. One thing that I've not talked a lot about in my character's history is that while he was in Paris, he got involved in a local party gang and became addicted to a particular drug that's called bluegrass. Or blue glass, excuse me.
Blue glass, yeah.
Blue glass is a psychedelic drug that lets the user, while under the influence, seeing colors and seeing some hallucinations, and it is strong, very addictive. And Frenchie, unfortunately, is in fact still addicted to blue glass. And because he is addicted, now he must continually take blue glass to now stabilize himself so he's not permanently seeing psychedelic colors and hallucinations. So he basically needs to get high just to survive the day, his day job as part of Traumatech. And his boss kind of just looks the other way as long as he's keeping safe with everybody else around him. So he's going to have a few doses on him, or on him, but in his possession, that when he feels it's important to not be high, he will take those doses to prevent that. Anytime he takes it, he will also take a difficulty value check equal to the with a resist torture drugs to see if he is able to overcome the addiction or remain addicted, and he is still in fact addicted to it. Let's see. So that should leave me. So we added 60. So I've now spent 2,000 of my 2550, which means that I have 550 Eurobucks left, which I'm going to hold for the moment. Okay, so holding that. So that should get me through all of the different types of cyberware that I'm going to utilize. That should get me through my weapons, my armor, and all of the gear that I want to have tagged along, or to have in my possession. And I'm banking 550 for now because there's some things that I want to purchase that I can't purchase until the game actually starts. Specifically, crafting some of my different stims because they take a difficulty value to craft them. I can't craft them until the game's in session. So I'm banking 200 of the 550 for that, as well as keeping 350 for cash that he's keeping stuffed into his mattress for if something needs to be purchased on the fly, he can get in contact with a local fixer or a night market to provide those, as well as if something else catches my eye as we're going down this path.
Right.
So the next thing to look at is his fashion or fashion wear, and this is going to be his clothing. So there is a table, because there's a table for everything, that's going to go through all of the different styles of fashions. We kind of talked about him a little bit earlier. So he prefers the urban flash, but that doesn't necessarily mean he has the monies to afford all of those clothes. We get a free 800 Eurobucks to spend on clothing, and he should be able to afford those. So the way I have that, urban flash wear, and he's going to have two pairs of pants for a total of 200 Eurobucks. He's going to have 3 shirts for a total of 60. He's going to have a nice jacket for a total of 100. 2 pairs of shoes for a total of 200. He's going to have a necklace that he's going to keep on him for 100, and he's going to have the quintessential mirror shades for 100. And when I sum that up, I have spent 760 of my 800, so I've got an extra $40 or 40 euro bucks to spend, but there's not really anything else that's going to strike my fancy. So that 40 euro bucks, because I'm not spending it, is just going to disappear after character generation is over. This 500,
it's not like your other credits.
Exactly. It's spent specifically for fashion and fashion wear. If I wanted to, I could also purchase more fashion wear, such as the biomonitor or the chem skin or the tech hair. That could come out of this pot of money if I so desired. I decided to have a nicer wardrobe and not do some of those other fashion wear. I might add some more of that later, but we'll see. But I think having at least 2 pairs of pants, 3 shirts, a jacket, 2 pairs of shoes is probably basically mandatory for any person to survive in the world.
Look at you living all rich,
right?
With your 2 pairs of shoes.
2 pairs of shoes and 2 pairs of pants. Okay, so that should get me through fashion and fashion wear. That should get me through the cyberware. So the next thing is to talk about the different lifestyles. Oh, and I guess I should, again, go back for complete package and edge runner. All of those choices are predefined for you. So you just say, I am a Medtech, and it says, here are your clothes.
Yeah, and same with gear. So at least one of our other players, possibly more than one, will be using the edge runner instead of the complete package. So you'll be able to see kind of how that breaks down as well. But we may still end up doing gear like this. I'm not sure yet, so we'll see. But yeah, lifestyle and house is page 105.
Which is interesting because it seems like it's not actually that page.
Perhaps not. 105, 106.
So it's actually page 377. So there's once you go to the page, the previous page, it'll link you to this page.
It totally does. That's funny.
So as far as lifestyle, so this is going to define how well you eat. So this is a monthly cost. If you want to eat kibble, which is effectively dog food.
Yeah, so in this cyberpunk future, there's a lot, especially after everything that's happened with the economy collapsing and the euro dollar being the new thing, and the United States collapsing and then coming back and then collapsing and coming back. There's a lot of poor people, a lot. And so one of the ways that the government and different corporations figured out they could feed people on the cheap is to produce this food. It's not great for you, and it has all of the nutrients and garbage you would normally get from your favorite stop at Oasis Circle K. It's essentially dog food, like Anthony said. It's small pellets of protein and vegetable matter and a whole bunch of random stuff in it. On Futurama, I think it's called Bachelor Chow. Same difference.
Yep. And it says the only difference between some brands of kibble and dog food is the cheeseburger flavoring. It doesn't specify whether it's the kibble or the dog food that has the cheeseburger flavoring. Other options, so you could go up to generic pre-pack, which is like TV dinners. And that's going to, instead of costing 100 euro bucks a month, it'll cost you 300. You could get good pre-packed food, which is about restaurant quality, which is for 600 a month, or you could get actual fresh food which is like executive, high-level corp, world-class restaurants for a total of $1,500 a month.
And
So
it's a little bit more than double each time you step up one of those types.
yep. So everybody starts with Kibble at 100 because we are still starter level characters, even if we've been around a little bit. So we'll just stick with Kibble for 100 for now. And that's what's been paid for this upcoming month. As far as housing, there's again another couple options. But for the standard character is going to start in a cargo container that has been retrofitted to be almost like a studio apartment, but it's a shipping container. It just looks a little bit nicer. And these are basically in stacks of cargo containers sitting on top of cargo containers, and with, I believe it's still shared restrooms and showers.
Yep.
And that's going to cost 1,000 Eurobucks a month. So right now, just living in a cargo container, I have to spend $1,000 a month in rent, and for eating kibble, I have to spend $100 in rent. You can get significantly better real estate at significantly higher cost to rent or to purchase. But this is just where people start. And so for our first month, this is what we'll be at. As we do jobs and we gain more money, we could utilize our money to purchase cyberware, to purchase gear, or to purchase a better living situation.
Well, and so one of the things I like about this, and this is something that is similar in both of the CyberPunk games that I have run. The other one being a fairly popular one where you run in the shadows. Um, the fact that I like Anthony said you can pay for a better living situation, but you have to pay for your current living situation. So you have, like what Anthony said, kibble costs 100 EB a month. Your cargo container costs 1,000 EB a month. So you have to be doing jobs or hustle or selling your body or your life so that you can afford to have this life. If for some reason the party does not make enough money this month to pay off everybody's rent, you guys are living on the street. That's how that works.
If you don't pay, rent is due on the first. If your rent is not given on the first, you are evicted on the second.
Yep. And there are plenty of people to move in that have been saving up or looking for a place. So that's something to keep in mind. And I think it's interesting because what we're planning on doing in the role playing game once it starts is we're going to be having downtimes most time in between games that the players are going to have to tell me what their characters are doing and rolling on a chart to see how much money they make in between jobs so that they can try to pay for these bills because they have bills. It's a dystopian future where you have to keep track of paying bills, and I kind of like that.
And if you can't support your cargo container, you might be living in that cube hotel where you basically are sleeping in a coffin, or you might be living on the street. And as you get cheaper or less expensive, I should say, housing, it's also going to start affecting the way your character lives because you're not getting restful sleep. You're not comfortable in your house. You have to take endurance checks because you're going to be fatigued for the rest of the month until you can find yourself a better living condition. And on that note as well, to Mark's earlier question of where does the Medtech work? Well, right now I only have a cargo container that I live in. Well, because that there by default becomes my working area. My working area is my lab, my whatever you want to call it, is also my house. I now have not just my bed and the refrigerator or whatever else in this tiny shipping compartment, but I've got all my medtech supplies. I've got all of my work equipment, and it's just really cramped. And because I'm combining my cargo container house with my workshop, I will also start becoming fatigued because I'm not getting a restful sleep just because of the fact that I have to do my operations from the house until I can afford a second cargo container to be a separate and distinct workshop.
So I was actually reading up on this, and one of the options that somebody talked about was renting a cube hotel that his character sleeps in, and renting a cargo container as his workshop.
Yep. But the cube hotel, all I have is effectively it's just a bed.
It's just a bed. You climb into it. You climb up the ladder and climb into it and sleep in it. That's it. For any of you curious, you can actually look up Cube Hotel and probably Japan and get plenty of pictures as to exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. So that might be an option that I have to start looking at as we start getting the game more in session, as to whether or not I do want to just spend the 500 that I've saved to rent a cube hotel, and then just not have my stims for the first week or so, or just what that trade off will look like.
Capsule Hotel. Capsule Hotel. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we have your gear, we have your fluffy background, we have your clothing and your stats. I tried to scroll up on your character sheet. That's not working for me. I think that part is good.
So I haven't filled out.
Yeah, you have to fill out your weapons and I think your armor. Oh, you filled out your armor, so just your weapons. So what the next step for us is going to be fluff. Specifically, the older sibling friend, and then some contacts you think you might have gotten in the field. We can wait on the fixer contact because Naomi still needs to make her character. But we can talk about some of the locations important to your character. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So as a GM, you have a couple different things that you're breaking down in the terms of the story. When I talk stats, statistics, like your intelligence, dex, or humanity, or your skills, that's a lot of the mechanics of the game. And so when I, as a GM, refer to the mechanics of the game, I'm talking about the crunchy bits, the numbers, the specific names for things, gear, stuff like that. I use the term fluff for everything that gets piled on top of that skeletal framework, right? The mechanics. So he might have, for example, let's see. Oh, perfect example. Anthony, for Frenchie, chose play instrument violin. Under normal circumstances, that has no relevant game mechanics, right? He's not going to be playing the violin with only 2 rings of violin. He's not going to go out and play it on a street corner, or he might, but he's not going to get very much money, right? He's not very good at that. Even though his stats for it are fairly good. He doesn't have the training for it. However, he chose violin, play instrument violin, as part of the fluff to make his character a little more well-rounded. So when I say fluff as a GM, I mean things that are not mechanical to characters or to the game world, but that add flavor, add that spice of being a well-rounded character in that setting. So I'm going to be using that term a lot, especially during these character creation sessions, because I like players and myself to feel like these characters are part of a world, that they're not just something that we mechanically move the claw over and drop them into our setting. They live in this setting. And so I want the characters to feel like they have a place in the world. So the way you do that is you talk with the player about points of contact they might have, or other friends, or restaurants they like to go to, bars they like to go to, people they might know, connections they have to the other players. Now that can get a little bit more mechanical because you do want the players and the characters to know each other, at least on some level. But all in all, you want kind of more fluff to wrap around these characters, these groupings of numbers and words, so that they feel more real. So to that end, if you feel that we're good with the character sheet, Anthony, I would like to talk to you about some of the fluff that can shuffle your character into the setting.
Yes, with a small caveat
Yeah.
that while you were talking, I did the quick math to go back to check my skills because the numbers didn't add up before. So I added local expert 2 of Paris, which I didn't have on there previously. I added 2 ranks to local expert of my home,
Which is here, right?
which is Lumens Nuevo, because he's
Okay.
familiar with this area. And now when I sum all of those up, I score comes up to an 88, which means I'm over by 2 points. So I need to pull 2 points from somewhere. And I'm going to pull those 2 points from let's go with resist torture drugs because he is still a drug addict.
Okay.
So that should fix all of that. This should now all sum to 86. Okay, so character sheet is done, and
Awesome.
go from there.
So let's go to your next page. And let's talk about your friends. The friend who's like an older sibling to you. Who do you think this should be?
Okay, so what I'm thinking is that so when Frenchie came to Lumens Nuevo as a part of Trauma Team, excuse me. While his parents were Trauma Tech, he was not. So he didn't have a lot of those skills. So he had somebody a mentor that was training him on this medical knowledge and teaching him and kind of showing him the ropes of how to be a paramedic. And so he has this kind of almost like a stand-in father with both of his parents being or already having already perished, or I guess like an older sibling instead. So this is someone that a mentor that has showed him the ropes. I'm kind of combining the most valued person with a friend that's like an older sibling.
Okay.
As far as names is where I start having trouble.
So was this somebody that was here?
Somebody that is here.
And was this person a trauma tech person? Were they a Ripper Doc? Were they
So I would say they were probably the team lead of
team
the
lead?
team that he got assigned to.
So maybe the head surgeon that you're talking about?
Sure. And so in our particular team, we all kind of flipped roles depending on the day because our team lead very much believes that any of us could be flatlined at any point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So all of us need to be able to do all of the roles to pick up in case somebody else goes down. So he is the team lead. He could act as the head surgeon. He could act as a security. He could act as a pilot. But either way, we're a team of 6 that we all work together very smoothly and efficiently.
Actually, I want to make a modded server that's also hardcore.
How about Sean Levinson?
Sure. Okay, so I have Sean Levinson is now the name of my friend / mentor / team lead.
Okay. And what would you say that as an old that you hang out with them for a bit outside work?
Absolutely, yeah. So as part of a crew, we generally go out to the equivalent of the bar to basically kind of cool off after shifts. Sometimes we get breakfast together. He's kind of showed me the rope, taken me under his wing to help teach him, to help be taught.
How old is Frenchie?
So Frenchie, I'm going to go with is 30.
Okay. So do you think Sean's gonna be older than you because it's like an older sibling?
So I'm going to say probably we'll call him 35.
Is he the one that looks the other way on your drug use?
Yes, but it's a very begrudging. He doesn't like the fact that Frenchie utilizes the drugs and has tried to pose an intervention a couple times, and occasionally it's worked for a few weeks. But the job's still got to get done.
Okay. Does Sean Levinson have any other family?
Yes. So he lives in Beaverville as part of a higher up in the Traumatech Corp.
Oh. Okay.
And it's something that the rest of us can aspire to, kind of thing. If we
He's
if you
he's the corpo poster child for your group.
basically, yeah. He's the management, so he gets the perks.
Okay. All right. So let's talk locations. What are some locations that are important to Frenchie here in Lumens Nuevo?
All right, so he's probably going to be spending most of his time in Nation because that's where his capsule stack is located at.
Okay.
Taking the tram, pick your method of transportation, to get from Nation to the Trauma Tech headquarters in the business park. I'm going to pull up the map here just so I have it for my own reference. That's not the map.
So to answer you, Mark, the corpos don't give you that level. So the question was, why doesn't Frenchie live in the Beaverville with the parents' house that the corpos gave him? And the answer to that is that's not how any of the Beaverville stuff works. So Beaverville is for families, for one, and for people that have risen into the role. And while I wanted to say Onyx, while Frenchie has been working with Trauma Team for a little bit, he hasn't earned that
perk
status, that perk inside the Trauma Team members. Whereas Sean Levinson, who is 35, may have been doing this job for like 15 years now, and has earned that corporate thing and has a family.
Yes. Yep. And Frenchie also being more of a sellout, the corp isn't as worried about giving him perks because they own him anyways. They don't need to provide incentives to keep him around.
Sorry, our producer has some really good questions to make sure that we're thinking through some of the maybe plot holes for future character creation stuff too. Okay, all right. So what specific locations though? You mentioned the bar.
Okay. Yep. So, sorry. So he spends most of his time in Nation because that's where his stacks are.
Right.
He takes the tram to get to Trauma Tech headquarters to suit up for the day for his shifts. After shifts, the team will usually hang out in the business district. So there is going to be a pub there. This is going to be one of those like a kiosk in the street kind of pub. Think a oh my god, Blade Runner, where he kind of sits down at the stall.
The noodle bar stall, yeah.
So the noodle bar stall.
Kiosk restaurants and pop-ups are everywhere in CyberPunk. So yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yep. So they've got one that they generally frequent, and the fake beer is passable enough to get the job done. Still at a small enough cost to make it affordable in this time. So he hangs out there. He's got hangs out a lot at the night markets. There is actually a kind of a, I want to say jazz bar as well, but that kind of gives the illusion that it's higher end, and this is not. It's basically
like a jazz dive.
A jazz dive, where he'll go and just kind of like listen to music to try to calm down on his own time, and basically watches people and takes lessons so that when he goes back to his own cargo container to play his violin, he's got some inspiration, as well as the violin helping him kind of get through the mental therapy of the day, kind of his own stress relief. violin. So he's got the jazz dive, he's got the bar kiosk, and I'm gonna make you come up with names for all of these because I'm terrible with names.
All right, so the pub kiosk is going to be O'Malley's.
Okay.
The night market sort of thing, you and I will discuss that later after Naomi's character's made.
Mm-hmm.
The jazz dive. What do you think, Mark? While Mark is thinking up names for a jazz dive, what is Frenchie's favorite restaurant?
Well, that's the thing. He hasn't found a lot of good food here.
Well, especially nothing he can really afford, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he doesn't get to go to the restaurants nearly as much as he would want to. The food here is not nearly as good as the food was in Paris. So he's basically, when he is able to go out for dinner, it's like once every couple months on a celebration event, or as a corporate reward for when the team does well in the quarter, kind of thing.
That makes sense, yeah.
There will be well, you might as well stick with the theme. There'll be a small French cafe that they go to.
Okay.
All of that being still in the business district, because nobody's really wants to go to M Nation, and they all kind of want to get out if they can. Spend as little time there as possible.
Okay. I'll come up with something there too.
He's definitely more of a city person than a country and than a country and swamps and bayou. He sticks to the cities.
Okay. So let's talk about 3 points of contact that are not other players that you have made in the city since coming here.
Okay.
People that you see relatively often, you're on good terms with them. Could be anything from a local newspaper person that you check on every once in a while because of something, or a kid that you run into because he's tried to steal your stuff a couple times. You made an unlikely friendship with. Also, a media contact, which is something Mark has mentioned to me like 5 times, because your story of a kid coming from Paris with parents who were trauma team members, whose parents were gunned down, and then you became one of trauma team's rising stars, would definitely be a story that media would want, and so perhaps you would have a contact that you would work with. That's hilarious, Mark. Thank you.
So that is a story that, while the media wants and the corp wants him to do, he is very loath to actually do that story.
Well, but it does play into your wanting fame and notoriety.
Touche. That's a good point. So yes, there should be a media contact, and I don't have my list of names handy, so I'm going to utilize one of the greatest websites ever, fantasynamegenerators.com. I'll give props to them to come up with some random name generators. This is going to take a little bit of time, but anyway, yeah. So there will be a media that has contacted him, and the corp has set him up because it puts the corp in a good light to have that story out there. The media likes it because it's a feel-good story that they can investigate, and they can increase their own cred. And while Frenchie tends to not like to focus on the tragedy of his parents, he tries to focus more on some of the feats that he's done throughout his time in Trauma Tech, the people that he saved, trying to keep the names out of it while also putting the names in there because some of those are high-end clients. And just working that story. So he's trying to kind of bank on what he's working with in Trauma Tech to gain that fame and recognition from that. I don't have a name Sorry, I'll have to come up with the names later.
Do you want April Sawyer?
Sure.
That was from Mark.
Are you writing these down, Dan?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a notebook specifically for character points of contact and locations that I'm going to be adding, but I have no doubt that as we come across them in the game, someone will definitely be taking notes.
Yes. I will say that is one of my greatest flaws as a player is my complete lack of taking notes.
Mark is very, very good at it, and I think he derives some kind of sadistic pleasure or masochistic pleasure out of taking such good notes all the time. He's one of the few players I actually allow to have, like, if there are advantages, what is it? Photographic memory?
Eidetic memory, yeah.
Eidetic memory. He's one of the few, very few players I actually allow to take it because he takes notes. So he can always be like, oh, scroll, that person. Versus somebody that says, oh, I have eidetic memory. Okay, well, what do you remember? I don't know. You tell me. You're the GM. No, that's not how that works.
The only time you'll hear me in this episode, because I can't resist, it is a sadistic glee. And mainly it's because I take more notes than the GM remembers, and it's funny to me.
It's true. It's true. And I actually take a lot of notes, and he still beats me every time. Okay. All right. So that's a media contact. We got two more.
So one of the kids that I did help out with on one of my first Trauma Tech runs. So there was a kid that had fevers and some sort of disease going like a cold or whatnot, that because medical supplies are in limited capability, this person didn't have the means to acquire the medicine that they needed. So my character provided a quick stimulant and some meds to this person as he was going through to the main client. So Frenchie helped this kid out. And they've kept, Frenchie went back after the shift to kind of check in on him to see how the kid was doing. And they've kind of developed a friendship. So this person is now a teenager that's kind of acting as, he's in with a couple gangs, and he's kind of like an informant of just kind of what's happening on the streets and what's happening in that side of the world. They still have a good friendship that they keep in contact with as well.
Did Frenchie get in trouble for helping the kid?
He was able to play it off so that people aren't actually aware that it happened.
Okay.
So Trauma. Sorry, go ahead. So Trauma Tech doesn't actually know that he did that. He just kind of, Trauma Tech doesn't know that he did it. It was just one stimulant.
But it was enough to get this kid over the hill.
Yep, exactly.
What do you think of the name Shift? Shyft.
Perfect.
Just for everybody out there, these names I'm coming up with, some of them are me, but most of them are Mark. I won't take credit for it.
Yeah, I need significantly more time to come up with names. I'm not an on-the-fly names person.
Okay.
So that's all you guys.
And one more. I've got one for you if you're struggling.
Go ahead.
How about a food smuggler or a smuggler, but they tend to smuggle foods from one of the night markets that you go to for cheese?
I love it.
So it's a little old lady. You're not sure how she does it, but she has and she can't get you large amounts, but she can get you small amounts of really authentic French cheeses, and it's at this at the night market.
This lady is ancient as well. She's been running this stall for God knows how long, since the beginning of time.
She is much older. So Lumens Nuevo is actually it's less than 10 years old. Corporations came in, rebuilt it really fast, but with the rebuilding came a bunch of criminals and smuggling and a bunch of stuff in the south. It's one of the largest, or the largest town in Dixie right now, city in Dixie right now. This old lady is much older than Lumens Nuevo.
And oh my God, the stories that this lady says, and if half of them are true.
All right, Mark, I'm gonna go with this name because it's funny, but
It's terrible.
I'm looking at you, and it's terrible. Brienne.
I think it's worth mentioning it for the laughs, and then we choose a completely different name for this person.
Okay. I'll come up with a good name for that.
And it's also at the night market where Frenchie is his supplier for the blue glass.
Okay. So he looks for medical supplies. Yep. That's where he gets his fix. And there's this little lady there sometimes that he checks in on because she's ancient. I'm going to have to get so Mark is asking what's the name of the night market. There are several that take place at different times in different locations across the city. I have not named any of them yet.
I didn't know they got names. I thought they were just like on the fly things.
Some of them have names, and that's how some people, like some fixers, know which ones to send you to.
Okay.
So some night markets are going to be, I haven't named them yet because I don't have all my players yet. Don't take away my GM XP. That's not fair. So some night markets focus on certain things, and so they'll be named in code for those things. So if you're looking for weapons, you're not necessarily going to... While some swap meets have food items, not every swap meet has food items, as an example.
Yep.
All right, so I have your 3 points of contact. I have some locations for you. I have your older sibling person. I don't have your love interest, but I'm going to be talking to you about that offline because Mark is a player and I want that to be secret.
Oh, for the note, Mark is not my love interest.
Oh, shoot. But if it is your love interest, he died in an accident. Are you sure he can't be your love interest?
That's an interesting angle.
All right. Was there anything else for the people that you have, Anthony?
Not that I can think of.
I think that we built a very good character. We've been at this for a little over 2 hours. I know that it's going to go faster with some of the other players. I really appreciate you going through all of the steps with us today, making a character from scratch with everything in mind. So I am looking forward to seeing Frenchie in the game, which will hopefully be in just a little bit. And I wanted to thank you for sitting with me today and making the character. So thank you for that.
Thanks for running. It was awesome to finally cement down what this character is going to be.
We've been talking about the concept for a little bit, so I'm glad to see him in the flesh, as it will. But yeah, that's all I've got. So without further ado, thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Mark, in the behind the scenes. And for those of you out in the world, good game. And hopefully we'll be seeing you soon.